Hello students, today I will be teaching the first chapter from the class 12th biology, and that is the sexual reproduction in flowering plants. Have you ever wondered how the simple looking flower around us is turned into a fruit? For example, a tomato, a strawberry, or mango. That is because in that simple looking flower, there is a complex biological process that is happening, and that we call it as sexual reproduction. Now you already know that how important are plants to us. They're a good source of food. They provide us vegetables, fruits, they give us medicines, fiber, and a lot more. And to have their existence on the earth, they need to reproduce continuously, because if they don't, it will lead to their disappearance. Therefore, reproduction becomes essential for the plants to have their existence. Now, reproduction is of two types. Asexual and sexual reproduction. Let's start with the very basic. What is asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction when there is only one parent is involved. That is, there is no fusion of male and female gametes from the individual parent, and any part of the plant, for example, the stem or leaf or root, can give rise to a new individual plant. For example, potato tubers, it can give rise to the potato plant. Bryophyllum leaflets, it can give rise to the bryophyllum plant. On the other hand, the sexual reproduction is when there is a fusion of the male and the female gamete from the individual parent. So there is a fusion of female and male gametes, and that give rise to a new individual plant. Now, sexual reproduction occurs in the flowering plants. Flowering plants means angiosperms. So we can say that in angiosperms, sexual reproduction occurs in the flower. So therefore, flower becomes the reproductive organ. Now, flower as a reproductive organ. So, flower has four major parts. That four major parts, we call them as floral whorls. I will make the figure of a flower to show you these four important floral whorls. Okay, so this is the structure of a typical flower. So the first floral whorl is the sepal. We also call it as calyx. So this green color structure that you are seeing, which is leaf-like, it is called as a sepal. The role of sepal is to protect the flower in the early bud stage. The second one is petal, or we call it as corolla. So this red color structure that you are seeing is a petal. So petal is usually brightly colored, and the reason is to attract the pollinators so that the process of pollination take place. Later in the coming lectures, I will be explaining the complete process of pollination, how it is taking, what are the modes of pollination and everything, and how this colored petal structure is beneficial for the flower to have the process of pollination. The third one is the male reproductive structure called as androecium. This is also called as the stamen. So this black colored structure, which has a lobed structure at the top, it is called as anther. So your stamen is divided into two parts. It has anther and filament. So this lobed structure, it is called as the anther, and this stalk-like structure is called as the filament. So together your anther and filament forms the stamen. The next important structure is the female reproductive structure, which is called as the gynoecium. It is also called as pistil. It is also called as the carpel. So the three names all meant for the female reproductive structure. So in the center, the blue colored structure, it is called as the pistil or the carpel. So it has three regions: stigma, style and ovary. So this upper region, this is called as the stigma. The center stalk region is called as the style, and the basal swollen region is called as the ovary. So together they form the carpel. Okay. Inside the ovary, you are seeing these locules are there. Inside that is the ovules present. So these are the ovules. Ovules are the female reproductive gamete. So the female gamete is the ovule. So let's revise. The four major voles are sepal, or the calyx, petal or the corolla, the male reproductive structure, the stamen, which has two parts, anther and filament, and the female reproductive structure at the center called as the carpel. It has the stigma, style and ovary, and inside the ovary we have the ovules. Apart from that, the other structures of a flower is this stalk-like structure to which it is attached to the stem is called as the pedicel, and its upper region is called as the receptacle. So before going forward, it is important to understand that this complete process of transition from a flower to a fruit containing a seed, the complete process or the pathway is divided into three important stages. So the first stage is the pre-fertilization. The next stage is fertilization, and the next stage is, or the last one is, the post-fertilization. So pre-fertilization means whatever process that is occurring before the fertilization. So this includes the formation of pollen grain, inside which there will be the male gamete, then the formation of embryo sac. This will occur inside the ovary, and the third one is the pollination. So once your pollen grain and embryo sac is completely developed, so then there will be a process of pollination, that is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, and then there will be the next stage will occur, and that is the fertilization. So the fertilization means the fusion of female and male gametes. In the flowering plant, there is an important event take place during the fertilization, and that we call it as double fertilization. This is something very important, and we will study it in detail as this is important for your NEET exams. Okay. The last stage is the post-fertilization, that once the fertilization has occurred, zygote has formed, what are the next events that are going to happen? So this is the development of embryo, then formation of seed, and the last one, the formation of fruit. So at the end of all the three stages, your flower is converted into a fruit. So the whole chapter will be divided into these three subtopics: pre-fertilization, fertilization, and post-fertilization. So in the end, I want you all to think why it is important for a flower to undergo a sexual reproduction. Why sexual reproduction is so beneficial for a plant to have. So one reason for it, that why sexual reproduction is important, is because it creates a genetic variation. You will understand this in more detail once you will learn about how pollination is helpful for the plant, then fertilization, everything. So you will understand how the sexual reproduction creates a genetic variation. Now this variation in the plant is going to help it in better adaptation in the changing environmental conditions, and that is going to help overall in the process of evolution. Very important. Okay, so that is the reason sexual reproduction is beneficial for the plant, because it is finally going to help in the process of evolution for its survival, existence. It is beneficial. So in the next lecture, I will be explaining the structure of the anther, how pollen grains are formed, and the first stage that I said about the pre-fertilization events I will be discussing. So if you are somebody who is preparing for the NEET exams or going for the class 12th board, I would really want you all to subscribe to my channel, because I will be following the NEET line, I will be following the NCERT line by line. So if you like my video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.